Hello and welcome everyone. I'm really happy to be here to moderate this conversation, the global partnership, living together in a time of pandemic and digital technology. In the webinar today, we invited professionals from various countries to share how to devote ourselves to stop not just the spread of the pandemic, but also the infodemic, and how young people can collaborate to prevent, also to cure the infodemic and pandemic. And before the three panelists share their experience, I will also briefly share in a pre-recording Taiwan's experience of countering the pandemic and infodemic. And after that, we will have a round of discussions between the three participants in our panel. And I've seen people trickling in, almost 100 people now in our room. And so please feel free to engage in chat anytime, and I'll just pick up your questions from the chat. And if our panelists are willing to comment as well, we just said that we don't have to do like round robin or anything. Anyone who feels like to speak or respond to any of the chat or to each other's points, we can make it more interactive. But first of all, let me introduce our three panelists. So Avi is currently a senior high school student in Washington State, in the United States. I think we're both in the Wired 25 list of this year for contributing to the counter-pandemic efforts. And so really looking forward to your sharing. And Miganush, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the CEO and co-founder of Teach Serving. It's a social enterprise. So as a social entrepreneur, we are also very much looking forward to hear from Teach Serving in the latest updated as of today slides and presentation on how that contributes to share the knowledge on epidemiology and countering the COVID pandemic. And then Egle represents the International Federation of Medical Students Association. Egle is the vice president also of external affairs of the association. And so I'm also really looking forward to the sharing. And as a final year medical student, I thank Egle for finding the time to attend our webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. And so please feel free to leave your thoughts in the chat, and let's officially kick off today's webinar with this pre-recording of mine. Hello, I'm Audrey Tang, Taiwan's Digital Minister in charge of social innovation. I'm really happy to be here virtually to share with you how young people help Taiwan to digitally innovate our response to the pandemic with no lockdowns, and also to infodemic with no takedowns. First of all, the collective intelligence system is very important to enable a fast and timely response to the pandemic. It was a young doctor who went by this name No More Pipe in the PTT, the Taiwanese equivalent of Reddit, a not-for-profit social sector forum maintained by National Taiwan University students, where the No More Pipe noticed that there was this Wuhan whistleblower with the name Li Wenliang, and who said there's 7 SARS cases in the Huanan seafood market. And so not only did she repost this whistleblowing around the last day of 2019, but also with her expertise, working with many other young people who upvoted this whistleblowing to find out the veracity of the claim. So it immediately gave this notice to the medical officers in the Taiwan Center for Disease Control. And we not only sent an email to WHO, but started health inspections for all passengers flying in from Wuhan to Taiwan the very next day, the first day of 2020. So this shows that with our absolute freedom of speech, according to the Civicus Monitor, Taiwan is the only country in the whole of Asia that has a completely open society in terms of the speech freedoms. Can the government trust the citizens to come up with useful collective intelligence, and the citizens can trust each other to come up with innovations? And sometimes the young people are very young people. There was a young boy in the primary school back in April that called this hotline of the Central Epidemic Command Center, the CECC, 1922, saying, "Oh, you're rationing out mask, and all I get is pink medical mask. When I wear it to school, my classmates may laugh at me." Well, the very next day, the CECC, all the medical officers wore pink medical masks, and at the suggestion of the participation officers, another young person, the Minister Chen, even said that Pink Panther was his childhood idol. So suddenly the young boy became the most hip boy in his class, for only he has the color that the heroes wear. Another part is about fairness. When we ration out the masks, a lot of civic technologists, most of them really young, in the GovZero initiative, forked the government, making sure that for our government services, which ends in GOVTW, has a young people's reimagination at G0V.TW. So it's those G0V civic technologists that came up with this idea to visualize the mask availability in real time in the crowdsourced maps so that people queuing in line can, for example, when we're rationing out nowadays, is every 2 weeks. For adults, it's 9 medical masks, and for children, that's 10. So when children queue in line and swipe their national health insurance card, people queuing after them can see immediately that the number goes down by 10, or if they're an adult, then it goes down by 9. And this kind of participatory accountability extends not only to people who can see the maps, but also people with visual impairments and so on through voice assistants, chatbots, and other technologies, more than 100 of which. And this also enables us to analyze the distribution strategy and for young people to say, hey, some of us work very long hours, so by the time we go off work, well, the pharmacists have all closed. And so this enables us to then revise the system working with the convenience stores so people can pick up the medical mask rations every other week through the convenience store 24 hours a day. In addition to fast and fair, the fun part is also very important because conspiracy theories and so on can threaten to divide the society when the time of pandemic comes. That's called the infodemic. And so there's again, a very young team working with the premier who noticed that there's a panic buying conspiracy theory that says the tissue papers are being confiscated to make medical masks. That's of course not true. But they roll out this meme just a couple hours after the rumor spreads. It's our premier wiggling his bottom a little bit, saying that in very large fonts that each of us only have one pair of bottoms. It's a wordplay because in Mandarin, to tun stockpile sounds the same as twin bottoms. So it went viral, and people understood then from this table that tissue paper are made out of South American materials, while the medical masks are made out of domestic material. So the panic buying died down in just a couple of days. So my call to action to you is to think how to make the epidemiologic knowledge, the physical distancing, wearing a mask to protect oneself from one's own unwashed hands, and so on, like this cute spokesdog of CECC, to make sure that everybody understands the science of public health. Just like a bunch of young YouTubers crowdsourced and crowdfunded Taiwan Can Help That Us. You can take a look at it, get inspired by it, and then spread the knowledge so that everyone understands how to reduce the R value of the novel coronavirus so that we can thrive and survive together in the time of pandemic and digital technologies. So that's my presentation, and please feel free to share more of your ideas. I look forward to learn about all your ideas in this forum, and it's use ideal, that's your idea. Live long and prosper. So, live long and prosper indeed. I'm really happy now to introduce the next part which is from the COVID-19 tracker, Avi's work. And let's hear about the work.
Thank you so much, Aubrey. So I'd like to first start with what my website is and what I created. So I made one of the biggest coronavirus trackers in the United States and pretty much the entire world so far. It was one of the first ones too. I made my website back in kind of like really early January when there were only first there were a couple news articles, but they were mostly in China at this time, and it wasn't really a thing in the United States. It was barely even in Europe at that point. And so I made the website ncov2019.live originally just as I found it really hard to find the information on this virus. If I wanted the most up-to-date numbers or anything like that, I'd have to go to, Chinese government websites or, a lot of places in Asia, but, I don't speak Mandarin or any of these other languages like that too. And a lot of people, that I know too are also trying to find information on this, like my mom, who is a doctor, but, again, we don't speak Mandarin. And there were also news articles that occasionally came out, but, those were mostly out of date by the time I read them anyways, especially when this was, changing so fast. So I decided to just make, a simple dashboard that would work to, just kind of show the most up-to-date numbers for all the different countries. When I first started, I really only had like one column for China, then one column for all the other countries in the world. And so how it worked was I used a technology called web scraping. So it's the same way Google works for their search engine, for example. So let's say Korea or, a lot of China, they have like individual provinces, right? And each one of those has like their own kind of health CDC kind of website where they may have like a table of information where, they update every couple hours with, these are the latest in, confirmed cases or people that have recovered or people that have died. All that information you can find. It's just, hard to find. So what I did was I used a technology called web scraping to download that page and then take all that information for all the other countries and add it to my own very large data set. And I made it very visually appealing as well. So for example, if you go to my website, the first thing you see, especially on a mobile phone, is just the quick facts. You see the total confirmed cases, the total deceased, all that information is right there at a glance. You don't have to go hunting through government web pages, full of just, all kinds of just jargon that isn't very helpful for you. And, I also made other pages such as a wiki page to have, information on what the virus is, where it came from. All that information is there. There was also a map. So you could, click on any country and see how many cases were there if you prefer a map. And, people really liked it. And I posted it online, I posted it on Reddit to start with. And people originally started to like it. And, after a couple weeks from when I first made the website, there was the first case in the United States where I live. And the first case was actually in Washington State, where I live. So that was pretty scary because when I first started this website, it was about a virus in China and Asia mostly. And all of a sudden it's, within a couple dozen miles from where I live. And that was pretty scary. And so a lot of people around me started to get a lot more scared about this. And, there was no easy way in America back then to find that information. Now it's so much easier. You can go on Google or, everyone has their own tracker. But back then there were no other trackers. It was just mine. And so I just kind of shared my thing a lot. I went on local community kind of places and I just shared, like, if you're looking for information on this virus, I made this website where you can track it. And people really liked it. So the traffic started to accelerate a lot. It took me, I had about 30,000 visitors a day for quite a while. And then I did an interview with a local kind of tech blogger in Seattle. And, within like a couple of weeks, I was already getting millions and millions of visitors. I think that the peak was like in late March, I had like over 36 million visitors a day, which was absolutely insane. And so far in total, I've had way over like 1.5 billion visitors so far. And it's helped a lot of people. And it's been really cool. And since then, I've won awards such as the Webby Person of the Year, where Dr. Fauci presented me my award. I've done things like Wired 25 with Aubrey as well, which has been really cool. But so I learned also how to make this website just by myself, really. For example, my Webby speech, I had to choose 5 words for my speech. And my speech was, you can learn anything online. And that's really true. I personally have been computer programming for about 10 years by now. And I'm only 18, so, it's been quite a while. And everything I know is just from watching YouTube videos or asking people questions in online communities. There's Discord, there's Reddit, all kinds of places where you can just find communities of web developers or app developers or any of those kinds of people. And I would just ask them questions, how do I do this specific thing? And, they would help me. And I just figured out how to make, websites or apps or any of that kind of stuff. And so when I made this website originally, I made it to make it easy to find information online, but I also, just did it because it was just another project to work on and get better skills. And this was just something to make. And, so everything, it's not like I went to a fancy university or anything like that to learn it. It was just everything that I found online. So it's been really cool. And, since then, I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with all kinds of countries around the planet. A couple of days ago, I did an interview with Poland. And then a couple of days before that, I was on like Hong Kong radio. Just the entire world has really been appreciative of this site. And I've done interviews, and there's traffic from every single country on the entire planet every single day to my site. There are people even from Greenland to, Russia that visit my site, and that's been really cool. And as well as this, one thing that's also been really cool is I've received, tens of thousands of emails, personal messages, all kinds of things across all social media platforms. But a lot of them are also a lot of young people that are, they feel very inspired. They think they can make something cool too. And I've tried my best to reply to as many of them as possible, pointing them in the right direction. These are YouTube videos I found useful for me. This is what I would recommend doing, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them have found that very helpful. A lot of them have even replied to me with their own local COVID trackers and their own native languages for their local communities and everything like that. And that's been really cool to just inspire a lot of other young people to do great things with technology and help their communities. And I've also done a lot of interviews with small schools in countries like Jamaica or Egypt, where the schools may not necessarily have fancy computer labs, where they might not have access to a lot of the kind of computer things I'm able to have access to. And it's been great to just inspire them and help them in any way they can. I mean, you could code a website on a Raspberry Pi, like a $30 computer, anything like that. So it's been really cool to help inspire a lot of just young people. And, what's next as well, I hope that I can continue to work on more interesting projects. Right now, I'm, working on applying to college. That's been like a whole thing. And I hope that, in college, I can find interesting people to work on more interesting projects with. And, also just continue to inspire a lot more young people. I've done a lot more things in the past, and also that I'm working on in the future. Just, done a lot of interviews with schools and everything like that. And that's been really cool just to see the projects that they make and they've shared me. So, if anyone else has a question or anything like that after they've watched this, feel free to message me on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. And hopefully I'll try and respond to you and help you with any kind of questions you have or anything like that.
That's awesome. And you can find the Twitter and Instagram links on the dashboard, and also the button to buy Avi a coffee at coffee.com.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so there's something about dashboards that makes us feel the reality that we're all in this together. And this is, I think, more so than climate change, but similar to climate change, that impacts the kind of global self-identity because we're all working on the same problem. Now, next, let's hear from Meganush, and please keep the question and conversations coming in the chat. The floor is yours.
Can you make me a presenter, Andre?
Sure. We're working on making you a presenter.
Perfect. So hi everyone, I'm Meganush, co-founder of Teach Surfing Social Enterprise from Germany, and I want to share our experience that how we use we turn the challenges in pandemic into the opportunities with our social enterprise. So short background, who we are, we have a platform called teachsurfing.org. It's a global platform and which connects from one side people, experts who want to share their expertise voluntarily to the schools, NGOs, or universities who have knowledge needs. So we are matching both sides, but we also prepare the volunteer speakers with offering trainings and coachings to them. And our vision is to enrich education and bridge cultural gaps through knowledge sharing. So our outreach is we have over 3,000 volunteer experts. We have over 255 organizations from 147 countries. That's the map of our website you see down there. And we've won many different international grants and awards since now. And how it changed for us after starting of the pandemic and especially lockdown is that before lockdown, we had a lot of focus to help volunteers offer offline workshops, to go to a school and offer a presentation, to go to an NGO and offer a workshop. But after pandemic, we realized we have to transform our concept. Well, the first challenge that we saw was that it was difficult in the pandemic times, in the beginning in time, as we heard before, to find verified information. People were panicking, searching the websites. And also there was a rising need to learn new digital skills. Why? Because people, even here in Germany, lost their jobs and they need to close their businesses, so they need to transfer it to a digital format. And also, very importantly, there was a desire to connect digitally during the lockdown because people were feeling alone, and it was important for their personal health to stay connected. So what we do with our platform is that we initiate a campaign called Teach Surfing Virtual Workshops, when we invite our global community to share their expertise. So far we had 20 virtual workshops, 25 speakers, and 180 participants from 19 countries. And how it worked that we had a very variety of topics to answer the first challenge and bring expert knowledge to the public. We organized workshops where doctors and scientists were talking about COVID and answering the questions of the public in a very personal atmosphere. The second set of workshops we had was to help them to get new digital skills, how they can transform their business to digital format, how they can transfer their courses into online format. And also, most importantly, we helped them to create workshops for their personal well-being. So people were panicked and they want to come together in an online format. So we offer meditation workshops, cooking workshops, and art and history workshops. So what was the outcome and impact? We realized we could, with our webinars, which we were afraid of because we believed a lot before on personal contact and offline workshops. And we were amazed about the impact that we created by offering them online workshops, because easier than before, people from around the world were gathered together with same passion and they could exchange. We had scientists or biology students from Iraq and Canada in one room, and they were exchanging, and it was beautiful. And same for other workshops. So we were very amazed of this power that was for us hidden. And it turns out to be such a beautiful thing due to this force that we needed to start online courses, online webinars. And then for speakers, the value was that they could create impact with their time and knowledge during the lockdown, which most of them had to stay at home. So they make good value out of their time. And of course, participants learn a variety of skills and could come together. So this is one set of challenge that we addressed and turned into opportunity. Another set of challenge was that we realized that the offline events, conferences, festival trainings, everything got canceled. And there was a necessity for the network organizations to match their community members online, and also necessity for educational institutes to transform their offline trainings into online learning format. So what came to our mind is that we do had this problem in our own platform. We are matching people with needs, knowledge needs to knowledge offers. So to give you an overview how this matching is an important factor, I would like to imagine that you have to match 100 network members manually. Can you guess how many combination of pairs exist in a network of size 100? Any guesses? Maybe in your head you can guess that. There's 4,950 combination of pairs that can be matched in a group of 100. But imagine you have a network of 500 members and you see suddenly the number raised to 124,000 combinations. And this is a problem that computers could solve for us for a long time ago, for many other cases. And even in Teach Surfing, we are using that to match our volunteer experts to knowledge needs. So we thought other people can also use this matching technology. And what we did is that we offer our own platform as a white label solution to other network organizations who had a community with knowledge needs and demands, and they want to match it together. And very timely matching, we also have adding online learning features and knowledge library features to our own platform. So we offered that as a software solution to other network organizations. And during the pandemic time, we got our 2 first customers for the platform. So it turns out for us to be a good business opportunity. So just an overview that we realized that we had a unique combination of skills, especially with the IT background. I'm also a software engineer and also education expert. And also because we had a platform, we could rapidly offer a product to a customer. We would help them to save a lot of resources to do their online matches. This is a screenshot how the platform looks like. Because I don't have time, I will not go through this, but it's shortly to cover on the topic of how the global youth can collaborate to prevent the pandemic. I think it's important that we work together against falsified information by bringing accurate information to the public. And this is what we try to do with our workshops, bring the experts, doctors, scientists closer to the normal humans. We should work together to support also digital transformation of education, because I see that's getting more important topic now, and we should collaborate and exchange experience. And I think on top, most important thing is that we as humans in pandemic times, we have to be more than ever together, unified and work together in order to fight a pandemic. This is not a time to hate each other, to start wars, to do anything like that. We should unify. And this is very close to my heart, because by the time of the pandemic, it hit its highest state. Azerbaijan was doing ethnic cleaning of Armenians from Artsakh region. So I'm originally Armenian. And this is why it was close to my heart to say, pandemic is not time for war. Let's have peace and let's work together. Thank you so much. And I think I'm also finished with my time.
Yeah, thank you. Very strong and powerful words. And I totally share the sentiment. Now I'm just reminding people in the chat that we have a kind of post-it note virtually of the questions you have brought. So we will circle back to those questions. For example, there's one from Brandon Chen asking what's the better ideas about getting people to really wear the mask and wash their hands. Maybe we can brainstorm a little bit on that. And also, Miganush, there's quite a few people very interested in your updated slides. So if you have a Google Doc link or something that you can paste to the chat, that would be wonderful. Okay, now without further ado, let's hear from Egle.
Hello, everyone. It's very exciting to be here, and thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Aglia Nushamita. I am a final year MD candidate from Lithuania and also in office as Vice President for External Affairs at the International Federation of Medical Student Associations. So just before we start, I would like to give you some background on Ifmsc. Ifmsc is the largest and the oldest student-led organization in the world and currently has a broad representation of 145 member organizations from 134 countries across the world and works in close relations with several non-governmental organizations globally. Ifmsc focuses its work in 6 main pillars through our standing committees. So you can see their logos here, including public health, human rights and peace, as well as exchanges and some others. And we also work through 5 identified regions. In this way, Ifmsc builds the capacity and conducts advocacy on local, national, and international levels. Today, I will be presenting to you some of our key efforts as youth organization during the pandemic period and some digital interventions from our side. So at the very start of the pandemic, Ifmsc has developed a COVID-19 response strategy, and some of our main projects included exploring the health literacy impact, as well as providing evidence-based information to young people. And finally, I would like also to share with you some insights on meaningful youth engagement through virtual settings. So at the very onset of the pandemic, we have acknowledged the importance of health literacy in driving social change. At the time, there has been a global epidemic of digital misinformation spreading rapidly through social media platforms and other outlets, posing a critical threat for public health due to the outbreak. The fight against such misinformation requires continuous provision of the most reliable but also recent information. Therefore, we have collaborated with World Health Organization by composing a survey to collect data about a huge number of organizations that focus on fact-checking and correcting misinformation about COVID-19. And we also collected some information on the young people attitudes on the information provision. This survey was filled by medical students from end of April to end of May. Just to give you some numbers, we have discovered 182 initiatives from 62 countries worldwide that verified information in 48 languages. So just to give you the broader scope of this survey, you can see that we had 2,600 respondents coming from 130 countries. 85 of them responded that they usually double check the reliability of COVID information before spreading it digitally. You also can see that some of the main reliable media channels were noted as WHO, newspapers, and TV news. And you also can note the negative impact on the mental health through this news sharing coming from youth. Some of the more important outcomes of our study were that for youth, video podcasts with experts and also regular social media updates and newsletters were the preferred outlets. But it's interesting to note that although social media was a preferred outlet, it also was identified as one of the main sources of misinformation, as well as internet, radio, and some printed media. In general, we have noted an urgent need for national initiatives and also political engagement for myth-busting. In order to follow up, Ifmsc is designing a platform to share fact-checking initiatives and recommendations openly, and also reviewing the possibilities of having artificial intelligence systems in order to check articles for the fake news. Furthermore, as we identified that videos are a highly preferred source of information for young people, we have thought about launching a digital campaign, which we have done together with UNFPA through Panelists platform. We were seeking to create a campaign that is dynamic and not stagnant, and something that could be reused by young people instead of just being posted and forgotten in some time. So as the media for this campaign, we have chosen to focus on recreatable videos and slides. So we have created templates and texts for different topics relating to COVID-19, including mental health, reproductive health, risk groups, and a number of other topics. We have created scripts for these topics, and we have translated them already to some main languages. And then we asked youth to record these videos. So it's important to know that young people were not only recording the videos, but also actively involved in drafting and every part of this process. So here you can see how the videos look like. So if a young person would come to the website, they could just click and recreate these slides that you can see here with the text, and even change them if they would like to. and record themselves and share this immediately on their social media. So this campaign proved to be quite impactful because in the end, although we initially chose only a few key languages, the young people themselves have translated it to more than 20 languages. In the end, we had 119 videos recorded and distributed by youth. And also we had about 20,000 page views at the end of July. Therefore, we can conclude that this campaign has been quite successful, and it did involve youth in every part of the process, which was absolutely essential for us. And finally, to also briefly discuss on youth collaborations in order to bring forward the advancement in the fight against COVID, I would like to outline actually the importance of meaningful youth engagement in many global health processes that are happening currently. As Ifmsc, we represent over 1.3 million medical students that have been leading these global efforts to address the emergency health needs of their communities. But we have noted that the engagement with civil society and especially youth organizations has dropped steeply, reducing the sharing of valuable perspectives in various global health meetings. And even though it has to be noted that, yes, there have been some positive sides, having in mind that most advocacy is done through digital interventions these days. For example, the financial barriers are mostly not there anymore, as well as some possible visa issues. However, there are still many challenges, such as lack of significant engagement, lack of opportunities to provide the input, and also networking issues, because it is now harder to directly reach the stakeholders, and not only the stakeholders, but also other young people, to propose some collaborations and to build initiatives together. The most important thing for youth is to strongly call on all organizations to meaningfully engage young people in COVID response, and reaching further than this webinar today, which can be the first step, but we do need to think forward. It is extremely crucial that all young people note the principle that nothing about us should be done without us, and that meaningful youth engagement is important at every step of every process that affects young people. Here you can see some of the take-home messages noted down. And finally, if you would like to receive more information, you can always contact me at vp@ifmsc.org. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I look forward to further discussion today. Thank you.
Awesome. So, nothing about us without us. That's a great take-home message. And there's a very vibrant chat room here. So before I focus on any particular conversations, I first want to thank Miganush for sharing immediately the Google Doc presentation. And now people are asking Egle of the same. Well, Avi used the website, so the website is already shared. So we can share that in both the email communications afterwards, as well as in the chat room if Egle happen to have that link available. All right, so let's begin with something that's already highlighted. What do you think, using a very simple case like wear a mask, wash your hands, it's a very simple thing to do. It's been proven as one of, if not the most important measures that people can take. It's like a physical vaccine. But how do you get people to not only accept this idea, but also spread this idea to other people? Any tips or any particular moments in the previous few months that you feel like, oh, this is like an angle worth spreading? Avi, do you have run into any of these responses, or any of the question you want to answer? That's fine too.
Sure, I have noticed that a lot of people do not want to wear a mask in the United States and other countries too, and I think it's honestly a big kind of cultural thing as well. You know, in Asia and stuff, I think it's been pretty common for just people to wear a mask when they're sick and all that kind of stuff. And that's just been kind of ingrained in their culture for a long time. But in the United States, we don't wear masks. It's never been like a thing. And a lot of people also still do go to school, and they still go to work, even when they are sick. And that's caused a lot of problems in the past. But, I think that if people will continue wearing masks, it'll also help with a lot of other diseases besides just COVID. Things just like the regular flu, I think would be a lot better. once the pandemic is over, I'm probably still going to continue wearing a mask just because other people are kind of gross, and they have all kinds of diseases. And I think this has been a big step forward for the United States in terms of just personal hygiene and everything like that. Everything from football stadiums to, little restaurants are all kind of working on making things more hygienic. They're cleaning things down, all that kind of stuff. And that's good just for the entire world, regardless of the coronavirus pandemic or anything like that. It helps with all kinds of things. So I hope that in the future, more of that can be done and people will still wear masks even after pandemic is over.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good idea overall, COVID or not. And Miganush, there's a more direct question. Like if your friends and families want to defy quarantine rules or anything that the government or the scientific community says is a really important thing to follow, what would you say to them?
A very good question, because I think especially with our older generation or parents or grandparents, it's always difficult to convince them that this is something important and real. So what we actually did, and it's my personal experience, that with this workshop that we had when we had doctors and public health sector advisors, we had from different languages. So we had Romanian, German, and English speaking. And also from Serbia, Serbian-speaking persons talking about this problem. And my parents would not listen to me, but if they listen to an expert, which says it's serious, you either it's an important problem. Either you don't see your grandchildren for 1 year, and then you will see her again. Or you decide for a shortcut and you will never see them again. So, and that's when the older or my parents' generation took it seriously, because from me, they would never take this seriously. But when a doctor, especially if it's their own language, they talk and say this advice, and they really take it seriously. So this is my advice, and this is what we are working hard. Make experts, make scientists talk. And there are people, and most of the people believe on them, and you calm down, because this is you are on the source of information. So that's my advice, to make them talk and make them more present. Science need to speak up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is spot on. In the very beginning, we distributed masks in convenience stores, but they were not very convincing. If we print the messages and the convenience stores staff hands you it, it's not particularly convincing, especially for the elderly people. But the pharmacists to which that they already get their refillable prescriptions and of course follow the pharmacist's recommendations, these people, 6,000 proved to be instrumental in getting the message across. So definitely.
Yes, they trust these people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a trusted messenger in the local language, in the local culture. That's excellent.
Exactly.
Right. So now let's hear from Ekle. There's quite a few questions asking now about vaccines. We know there's the COVAX. There's also various other vaccine arrangements, and people are asking, are there some sorts of ways we can brainstorm to make that information also more transparent or more easily understood by people? And there's also, of course, the kind of implicit infodemic about the anti-vax, which is not a problem that much here in Taiwan, but I don't know, what do you think on an international stage?
Thank you so much for your question. I think it's a very interesting discussion in general, because even though we're currently living through this pandemic, there are still a significant number of people that are not accepting the idea of the vaccines, which can be quite problematic. So as a medical student and talking on behalf of Ifmsc, so we have more than 100 medical student associations around the world, including the Taiwanese Medical Student Association, of course, that focus on reaching their local communities. So I think for us it would be quite important to mobilize the medical students as young people, and not only as the workforce of the future of the healthcare, but also as leaders for today, to try to distribute this information and to reach their communities. However, that being said, it's difficult to rely on only one source of information or only one way to do this, but a more systematic approach in general is needed, as well as political will.
That's excellent. Yeah, Benedicta from the chat room says the media should also play a large role, of course, to share concrete information. But in a sense, the core message really in the four of us is that we are, in a sense, the media, not only having the media platforms for other people, but also a collaboration for other people to translate and localize the messages that's worth spreading. So I would like to circle back to Avi and ask, so given the topics that we have discussed today, what would you call to action be to the people who are young, around your age, or maybe just a little bit older? And what are the things that we can do to fulfill the kind of the visions that we outlined today, that is to say international solidarity against this common topic, this common issue?
Sure. I think that one of the biggest things is that people should be very wary about what they read in the media, because there has been a lot of misinformation that has spread, especially in 2020. You know, everyone has social media, and just it's such an easy way to find all kinds of information online, and a lot of it is not true at all. And that has caused a lot of problems, especially in places like the United States, where there are tons of people that just flat out won't wear a mask, or they call it, all kinds of hoax or anything like that. And, a lot of people also just don't really want to trust scientists and all those kinds of things. And that's caused a big problem, especially here. And, the fact that people just won't wear a mask or all those kinds of things because they think it's like, against their rights or something. I understand both kind of points of views with those. But, I think it's very important that we do trust our scientists and all those kinds of things, but at the same time, be very wary about the information that comes from places like the World Health Organization, or in America, the CDC. I hope that once in the future, people can fact check a lot more of the stuff that they do share online. It's very easy, especially on Twitter, to just retweet anything. But, I think it's important to check about what you are retweeting, especially if you have, a lot of influence and a lot of people that are following you. Especially celebrities and everything like that. It's good that a lot of them have, tried to be very helpful. But, again, there's just so much misinformation that spreads so quickly on social media. And I think that it should be everyone's role to try extra hard not to spread this kind of stuff, because in the end, it causes a lot more unnecessary, deaths and all those kinds of things. If everyone just wore a mask and like actually, tried to be good and not like congregate in big groups and everything like that, then this pandemic would, maybe wouldn't have never even been a pandemic in the first place. And a lot of the governments too, it's on them a lot as well. A lot of the governments need to prioritize, health infrastructure and things as well. All the money it's costing the United States and the entire world now is trillions and trillions of dollars. The amount of money it would have cost to prepare for this pandemic in the first place, and when it happened, pour as much kind of resources as they can into preventing the spread, would have been like not even a tiny fraction of the amount of money it's costing the entire world economy now. So hopefully in the future that kind of stuff can be done. But I just really want to emphasize to make sure that what you are sharing on Facebook or Twitter, anything like that, is accurate information. And to make sure that the sources that you are using are, trusted sources and not, like little tabloids or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great call to action.
Can I also add something here?
Please, yeah.
Andrew, it just came to my mind. We talk a lot about wearing masks and sticking to that, how we can change that mindset. But for me, the core thing is also just to make people stay at home. It's also very important. Just don't go out so much. Don't interact so much. And we need to change mindset. We need to have a different lifestyle, different business setup, and different. But that's an important factor. People stay home. Just stay home, and then you don't even have to wear masks. So just stay home. This is one factor I just want to bring up, that it's also important.
Definitely.
More important.
More broadband and more WebEx events, so that people can still interact at home. That's an excellent point. Yeah, and I think it also takes care of people's mental health needs as well, because when you're staying at home, but you do have pretty good broadband connection to the people that you care, then you stay at home more, because beats face-to-face conversation where you have to wear a mask and you don't quite read each other's micro expressions. Okay, so Eglet, there's quite a few questions in the chat room. I think the main idea, one of which is about the mental health scenario during the pandemic, especially in places with lockdowns. There's a real concern around mental health, not just the physiological health. Do you have any response or takes or tips around this beyond, less retweeting of mental health affecting tweets, which Avi just mentioned?
Yeah, definitely there's more than we can do than retweeting. Although retweeting sometimes also can be a useful tool. So first thing that I would like to say is that mental health is just as important as physical health, and it cannot be left behind in any conversation, talking about population health in general. So it's also especially true that this has been affecting young people to quite some extent, unprecedented even, I would say. And to maybe share some of the good practices, in the campaign that I've mentioned in the presentation, we also have covered mental health. But some of the things we have done in Ifmsc also included collecting resources library. So we have collected different folders with different ideas for young people, what to do during the time of the lockdown. So this library also included the possible ideas how to meet your friends, how to organize virtual parties, but also resources on where to access free books or where to find some content or some courses to learn and keep yourself occupied. So we have promoted these materials quite a lot. And other than that, organizational wise, I think it's also interesting. Some organization engage in an initiative called a mental health watch. So in Ifmsc, we implement this on international level. And for every team that we have in Ifmsc, we have this mental health watch. So it's basically a system of checking the mental health status of our international team's members every month. It is not mandatory. So if somebody does not feel comfortable, they do not have to fill it in. But we do also always try to track and to see how our members are doing and if there are any interventions that can be made from our side. And definitely even more discussion is needed on this question because I don't feel it has been touched sufficiently for the extent that it has taken.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'm looking at the chat room and people are having a very lively discussion about what kind of measures are useful from now to where the vaccine is widely available to make sure that we not only understand the repercussions of the COVID, but can also recover from it, maybe becoming more resilient of it. In Taiwan, we learned from the 2003 SARS, or as I refer to it, SARS 1.0, because we're at SARS 2.0 right now. And then we kind of upgraded our resilience system, including the Central Epidemic Command Center and so on, and the norm around wearing masks and the norm around quarantine, because people felt that at the time of SARS 1.0, if you get quarantined for 14 days, that label kind of attached to those people. But after that, we learned that it's very much a negative effect on their mental health and their community well-being. And so we made extra effort. So now when people stay at home for 14-day quarantine or by returning into a hotel quarantine and so on, there's no stigma attached to it. So that's one concrete thing we learned from SARS 1.0 that really helped us in SARS 2.0. So for the last round, I would like to ask each of you, what's the kind of one takeaway from SARS 2.0 that may be helpful for us in SARS 3.0, God forbid, but for other future epidemiological situations as well. And I will begin with Avi this time too.
That's been pretty good is, there's been a lot of push to make it easier for more people to have access to the internet, especially in more rural areas, in places like America and other places as well, because now it's seen as more of an essential thing. And next time we have a pandemic and things go back to being online and everything like that, we'll be a lot more kind of prepared for something like that. And I think just overall, I hope that there will be another pandemic. It's not an if, it's a when. Just like there's always just more earthquakes and everything like that. Even though we do a lot, prepare against earthquakes, there will always be more of them. And I hope that, there will be just people will just prepare more in the future. There will be contact tracing from the start in all major countries, and that all countries will do their best to kind of just to prepare for something like this, and that people will continue to wear masks and all those kinds of things. That's all very important. And I think that this pandemic has shown that it really can, even in our world of all our flying cars or whatever and all that kind of stuff, that a pandemic can still absolutely cripple our economy in the way everyone does, just living their life every single day. But yeah, I just hope that the world will be more prepared, and that, I shouldn't be, a little teenager making a website for people to find information. That should be something that the government should be doing and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that the world is just more prepared next time.
Awesome. So Miganosh?
Yeah, the first thing comes to my mind is that next to digital access, which was an important point Avi brought up, is that I hope that we get better and prepared in digital education, because even in countries like Germany, the education was totally disabled because of pandemic, and they realized they had to suddenly go online. So I hope that this was a good lesson, that we would invest more on education and in digital or blended learning. So next time we are more prepared and our students can continue their education.
Definitely. So more webinars like this one, and also more engagements from the community to take care of the learning across generations, I would say. So Egley?
Thank you so much. So for my final message, I would like to outline once again the importance of youth engagement, and also that as the next health emergency comes on, because as Avi said, it's not a question of whether it does, it's more of a question of when it does. It's important that also young people are involved in the response. Talking about future health workforce, the medical students, some of us have been fast-tracked in our countries, and and many of ours education also has been temporarily stopped. So it's extremely important to also focus on the future health workforce. And however, if I may add one more message, I would also like to say that even though this health emergency of COVID-19 is happening right now, it's also important not to forget the other health emergencies that also are happening at the moment, such as climate change and its impact on health, and also to be wary of the whole context of global health. And thank you so much.
Thank you, definitely. So we are coming to the end of this webinar, because I promised at the beginning that I'll keep on time. But I would like to encourage the participant to take this conversation to your communities, to your schools, to your colleges, and to your families. And let's work hard together for the better future, not only for the pandemic, but also against the epidemic and also the climate change. And we will hold the second webinar on November 27th, Taiwan time, at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So we invite the international youth organization representatives in the next webinar to participate as panelists, including the European Youth Forum, the World Youth Alliance, and also the One Young World. And they will talk about how the global youth can collaborate to prevent the pandemic, the next pandemic perhaps. And we will also collect the ideas during the second webinar and use them as the reference for the next year's Global Youth Transform, where we probably will get a chance to meet face to face. So thank you all for your participation today and for your really, really good comments and questions to each other. And I wish you live long and prosper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.